In this video, I show how you can use Telegram as the trigger for your n8n automations so that you can build chatbots or just in general use Telegram as a way to communicate with your AI agents and your n8n workflows. And the cool thing with this setup that we're going to build here today is that your automation can receive both text messages but also voice messages. So for example, if I execute this workflow, and then I go to Telegram and send a message to my automation. Hello, automation. You can see it receives the message, then it determines the message format. So it recognizes it as a text message and then sends it to this message node where it stores it inside of this message field, which means we can then use this message in the next steps of our automation. But here's the really cool part. If I execute this workflow again, but this time I send a voice message to my automation. Hello automation, here is a little voice message. You can see it also successfully received the message, then successfully categorized it as a voice message, decided to download the audio file of the voice message, and then transcribed the audio file, which means it turned the voice message into text. And here's the result. Hello automation, here is a little voice message, which is exactly what I said. Then it does some proofreading and grammar correction. And finally, it also sends the transcribed version of that audio message as text to this node, this message node, and also stores it inside of this message field. And the amazing thing about this setup is that we handle the format, if it's a voice message or a text message, once at the beginning, and then later in the automation, we no longer have to worry about it. For example, if I now were to continue this automation, and let's say I want to send the message from Telegram to an AI model, let's say some OpenAI ChatGPT model. And you can see I can just pull in this message into my fields and can just use it as text. And I don't even have to know if it was generated by a voice message or a text message. I can just use it. And that's the really cool part. And in the next few minutes, we're going to build this exact setup completely from scratch. We're going to look at how you can connect Telegram to n8n, how you can get your Telegram API keys, then how you can make the automation tell the difference between a voice message and a text message, how we can turn the voice message into text, so how we can transcribe it, and then finally, how we can combine both voice messages and text messages so we can just use them as one data field in the next steps of our automation. The first thing that we have to do is we have to add a trigger to the page, a Telegram trigger, and I'm going to use the trigger on message. So that's when we want to run the automation whenever we receive a new message from Telegram. Now, the first thing that you have to do is you have to create a connection to Telegram, so to add a credential. If you haven't done that yet, you just click here and then click on Create New Credential. Here it asks you for an access token. Now, where do you get this access token from? The answer is quite simple. You get it from Telegram. And for this tutorial, I'm going to use the web version of Telegram, as you can see right here. But this will also work exactly the same with the Telegram Messenger app that you can download on your smartphone. The first thing that I'm going to do up here in the search bar, I'm going to search for a chat called Botfather. And then here in the global search, I can find a chat called Botfather with this purple verification check mark and about 3 million monthly users. And I click it and open it up. Then I click on Start here at the top, or you can also just send /start as a message. And what this Botfather allows you is it basically allows you to create your own Telegram bots. And these Telegram bots then allow you to send and receive messages from and with your automation. And to create a bot, what we have to do is we have to type in the command /new bot. I hit enter. And then it asks me a question. All right, a new bot. How are we going to call it? I'm going to call this Mike Pekka n8n test bot. But you obviously call it specific to your own use case. Okay, now I have to choose a username for the bot. And the username, I usually choose the exact same username. Just make sure that the username ends in the word bot. Okay, and now it says done. Congratulations on your new bot. So we have now successfully created with. And inside of this success message, there are two important things. The first thing is this link right here. It opens the chat with my Telegram bot. So this is how I can later then communicate with the automation, send and receive messages. I click on start here, and now the chat is pinned to the left of my chat overview. And then the second really important thing inside of this message is the HTTP API access token. And it is this one down here. And you can just click on it to copy it. Then back inside n8n, I just paste this here and click on save. And now you can see credentials successfully created. Perfect. Let's close all of this and let's execute this for the first time. Execute workflow. And now I sent a message to this new bot on Telegram. Hello bot. And you can see the workflow executed successfully and the Telegram trigger received the message that I sent with a few additional pieces of metadata. But down here we have the text hello bot, which is exactly what I just typed in a few seconds ago. And already now the cool thing is, by default this accepts voice messages. So if I send a voice message here, hello bot, this is my first voice message. And if I execute this again, you can see it receives the voice message with a lot of different pieces of data again. But down here we have this voice object. And with this we have access to the audio recording. Okay, so the first action that we have to take now is we have to make our automation tell the difference between voice messages and text messages. And the way we can do that is by clicking on plus here. And then I'm going to add a switch node, because this switch node allows us to do some conditional branching in our automation. And I add a routing rule so that we have two routing rules in total. I rename both. The first one I call voice message, and the second one I call text message. And once I do that and go back to the canvas, you can see this switch node now has two outputs, one for voice messages and one for text messages. And we now have to set up conditions for when we want to say data on this voice message output and for when we want to send data on this text message output. And actually with Telegram messages, this is quite easy, because as you can see here in this data of the Telegram message, there is this object called voice. And this object is only present in the message if it is a voice message. If this is a normal text message, this voice object will not be present. So based on that, we can set up our condition. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this voice object into my condition and then choose the condition object exists. So the JSON message.voice object must exist, then it's a voice message. And we can do the exact opposite for when it's a text message. We can just drag in this object here in the text message condition and say the message is a text message if this voice object does not exist. And that's all we have to do. Now, if you don't fully understand why I chose object here and you don't know exactly what an object is and how it works behind the scenes or what this $JSON means, then feel free to check out my course called Technical n8n Simplified. I'll put a link to that in the video description, where I teach you all of these fundamentals about these expressions here and objects and data formats in n8n completely from the ground up. So if that's interesting to you, feel free to check out the link in the video description. Okay, now our two conditions are fully set up, and what I'm going to do next is I'm going to choose this Telegram trigger and click on the key P on my keyboard to pin the data. This means the data of the last execution is now stored here, and if I execute the workflow, I no longer have to send a message every time to trigger this automation, but it will just use the pinned data. In this case, our voice message. So let's execute this again just to see what happens, and you can see this switch node already classifies the message correctly as a voice message. If I open this up, you can see it determined in the output. This is a voice message, so it's going to send the data on the voice message branch. Let's rename this switch node, because switch is not really a good name. We want a descriptive name that shows us what's going on. Let's rename this by selecting it, and then you can click the space key or space bar on your keyboard. And I'm going to call this check message format, and then rename. And now it's much more clear what's going on. The next thing that we have to do is we have to somehow access or download our voice message. Because if we look at the data that we receive here, you can see there's some metadata about the voice message, like the duration or the type or a file ID or the file size, but it does not actually include the voice message itself. But there's a solution for that. If I click on plus here and search for a Telegram note, Telegram has a file action called get a file. And with that, I can download the audio of the voice message. So I add this to the page and make sure that it's added to this upper branch, to the voice message branch. Okay, this is quite simple to set up. All we have to do is we have to add a file ID of the file which we want to download. In our case, you can see the voice object here already includes a file ID. So I just drag this file ID into this field. And that's all we have to do. Let's run this again and try this out. Execute workflow. Workflow executed successfully. And you can see here now downloaded the file of the audio. Next, we have to take that audio file and turn it into text. So that means we have to transcribe it. To do that, I'm going to add a new node from a provider called OpenAI, which you are all familiar with. And OpenAI does not only have these typical ChatGPT text prompts, it also has some audio actions, as you can see down here. One of which is called transcribe a recording, and I add that to the automation. Now, the first thing that you have to do is if you haven't connected your OpenAI account yet, or you don't have an account yet, then you quickly have to create a new credential here. So click on create a new credential, and then you have to enter your API key here. If you don't know how to do that, then just go to the website platform.openai.com, log in with your OpenAI or ChatGPT account, and here you can, in the settings, you can set up an API key. And then you can add some billing details to it, and then you can generate the API key, and you can then use this generated API key as a credential. Next up, you have to choose a resource. Audio, that's already good. Operation, transcribe a recording, input data field name, also good. So we can use this as is. There's one interesting setting here, so we can add an option, language of the audio file. If you already know that all of your messages, your audio messages that you receive will be in one language only, then you can put in the language code here. For example, my voice messages are all going to be in English, so I put in the audio code EN. If you want to receive voice messages in multiple language, then just delete this option again. Okay, let's try this out. Okay, and it executed it very quickly with the response text. Hello, here is a little voice message, which is exactly what I said in the voice message. Okay, let's keep going. Next, I will add a set node to this automation. So I search for set. And this basically allows us to create new data fields and new data structures. I will add a field called text. And for the value of the text, I'm just going to drag in the response that we received from the transcription. Okay, and now we can use that in the next steps of our automations. If I execute this, you can see we have the text available in this text field. And let's also call this set node set message. Let's go back to the canvas, and we can see now the audio, the voice message processing is complete. Next up, we also have to process text messages. So what I do here is I connect the text message to this set message field, and I unpin the data from the trigger, because now I have to execute this again, but this time with a text message, so that we have a text message available in the automation so that we can complete the setup of the workflow. I go back to the set message field. The first thing that I have to do here is I have to work around a small bug of n8n. In the schema, we can see the Telegram trigger data does not show up. If that is the case for you as well, you can just switch to table or JSON. Let's switch to JSON and then select the Telegram trigger and then switch back to schema, and then the data is available. Okay, let's have a look at what's going on here. Inside of this set message node, what we're doing is we have a text field, and inside of this text field, we store this $JSON text value, which we receive from this transcribe a recording node, so the previous node. And what I want to do now is I want to add a fallback value. So if this recording transcription of the voice message is not available because no voice message was sent and a normal text message was sent, I want to use a fallback value. And to do that, I'm just going to write 2 question marks. And then I drag in the text from the Telegram trigger. And then I get this expression. So what this basically means is take the text that we receive from the transcription, and if it exists, then ignore the rest of this expression. But if it does not exist, because there was no voice message in the first place, then take the text that we received from the Telegram trigger. And this is a really smart way how we can combine the data of these 2 branches conditionally depending on which of these executed. If we execute this, you can see we get this text message. Text message is here, which is what I sent, but this text field would also hold the voice message text in case of a voice message. Now, if you're still not sure or still a little confused by this $JSON text question mark syntax, this fallback syntax, and if you would like to learn more about that, then feel free to check out this course which I've created called Technical n8n Simplified, where I teach you all of these n8n fundamentals about objects, about these advanced expressions completely from scratch. I will put the link in the video description and also show it on the screen right now. Okay, so that means our trigger, the first part of the automation, is now complete. What I want to do now is I want to build out a small mini automation so that you can also see how you can send a response with your automation to Telegram, because that's usually what you do. You receive a message, then your automation does something and then sends a response. Additionally, in a few moments, we're going to talk about a security issue which this automation has right now, and we're going to fix that security issue together. But let's quickly build out the mini automation. So what I want to do is I want to take the message that we received from Telegram and then send it to ChatGPT as a regular AI prompt. And then I want to take the response from ChatGPT and send it as a response to Telegram. Let's do that. I add a new node, AI, OpenAI, and I choose the classical AI text prompt, message a model. We can reuse our OpenAI credential, and then we have to choose a model. I think a good model at the moment is O4 Mini, but you choose whatever model you prefer. And then all I do is I just drag this text message into this prompt field, and we're done. That's the amazing thing about this setup, because now we don't even have to know if this was a voice message or an audio message. We just use this text field and it will work both ways. Okay, let's quickly execute this step. Okay, and it responds, I see you've mentioned text message is here, could you let me know, and so on and so forth. So it recognizes our prompt. Then the final thing is I'm going to add another Telegram action. And I'm going to search for message, send a text message. So this one right here. Here we have to fill out 2 fields, the chat ID. And here I can just choose the chat ID from the Telegram trigger. So here, chat and ID. I can just reuse that so that the response goes to the same chat that the initial message was sent from. And for the text, I want to use the response from the AI prompt, message content. I drag that in here, and then this will be our response. Let's try that out. I'm going to execute this step, and you can see there was a sound in the background, and I received this message, the response from the AI. Down here we have this annoying attribution. We can remove that, fortunately, by adding a property called append n8n attribution, and then we disable this switch. Okay, let's try this out once, and then we're going to fix the security issue. So I execute the workflow, and then I send a voice message. Why does the moon seem so close on the sky if it's actually 400,000 kilometers away from Earth? Please respond briefly. Okay, voice message successfully sent. Let's look at the workflow. It executes and we get a response. Because the moon subtends about 1/2 of degrees of your view, similar to nearby objects like clouds, and so on and so forth. So we get a successful ChatGPT response. How cool is that? Now I would like to fix the security issue because right now there is a big problem with this automation. It looks really cool, it works really well. However, this Telegram trigger at the moment can receive messages from literally anyone. So anyone that finds your chatbot, a Telegram bot that we created, can send messages to it and trigger the automation, which is not good. In some cases, that may actually be what you want, but usually if you use Telegram as a way to communicate with your AI agents and your n8n workflows, then what you want is that only you can send messages to it. And you can achieve that by setting a property here. I click on Add Field and then click on Restrict Chat IDs and Restrict User IDs. All you have to do now is copy the chat ID here, paste it into chat ID, and then copy this from ID, this is the user ID, and paste it into the user ID field. And now only you with this account that created and messaged this Telegram bot, only you can send messages to it and no other account. If you want to know how I use this Telegram trigger setup as part of one of my coolest AI marketing automations, then subscribe to this YouTube channel because that's going to be one of the next videos that I'm going to upload. Okay, thank you for tuning in. My name is Mike. Have a great day. Bye.